This is News Talk ZB News.
It's 12 o'clock. I'm Bruce Russell. 7 people have been arrested after 2 serious firearms-related incidents in Wellington. One in the central city, the other in Tawa. Police say they're believed to be linked. 2 people are in Wellington Hospital in a critical condition after the central city incident, in which 2 people were arrested. There were no injuries reported in relation to the second incident in Tawa. The mayor in Invercargill says a multiple fatality crash has shocked the community. Several people died following a 2-vehicle crash on Queen's Drive yesterday, understood to involve teenage boys. Mayor Tim Shadbolt says it's devastating.
The whole city is feeling pretty sad and reacting to the news of the crash. We're a small community and this touches everyone involved.
The aftermath of the crash was captured on tape. Herald senior reporter Anna Leask is at the scene and says footage shows a number of people desperately trying to save those who were hurt.
They crowbarred off a door to get to a boy that they believed was still alive, and they were just really focused on helping him. You could see quite clearly that people were badly injured.
Police are expected to reveal more details about the incident shortly. A homicide investigation is underway in Invercargill after a man died early this morning. Shannon Johnstone has details.
Police received a report shortly before 1 a.m. that 2 men were injured on Don Street near the District Court. One man was found unconscious with stab wounds and died at the scene. A second man with similar injuries is in hospital in a critical condition.
Police say the incident is not linked to the fatal crash which happened nearby. Police in Whanganui are appealing for witnesses to an early morning assault that's left one man seriously injured. A 23-year-old man has been taken into custody and charges are being looked at. 2 people are in hospital and 2 people have been arrested after an incident in the Wellington CBD. Police were called to Dixon Street at 5 o'clock. Cordons are in place while a scene examination is conducted. The occupation of Shelley Bay in Wellington looks to be taking a turn as a symbolic Māori stone is laid. Mo Whenua protesters have been occupying the site since November 2020, opposing a $500 million development. Taranaki whānau iwi leaders, the Trust, Mo Whenua and tribal members attended today's ceremony. A joint statement says Mo Whenua will change focus from the occupation while continuing the illegal case on the land sale. 2 years of unprecedented disruption from the pandemic have had an enormous psychological toll on New Zealanders, and the burden is growing. New polling for the Mental Health Foundation found 36% were experiencing poor emotional well-being, up from 27% last year. Health professionals say the wave is overwhelming public mental health services. Association of Salaried Medical Specialists Executive Director Sarah Dalton says there are many vacancies.
Psychiatrists, psychologists, key workers and nurses. So that puts huge pressure on the people who are left to try and pick up in this really booming demand.
The UK will allow motorists to watch TV in self-drive cars. A new law will make the act legal as long as it's in a device connected to the car's system. That means if a threat interrupts viewing, the driver will be able to react. It might not mean much at the moment, given that self-driving cars are banned on UK roads. Tech commentator Paul Stenhouse told Jack Tame UK lawmakers are trying to get ahead of the technology.
This is the very first rule that they're putting out. They're planning to have a full suite of rules, regulations by 2025.
News you can trust. This is News Talk ZB News.
It's 1 o'clock. I'm Bruce Russell. Police have confirmed that 4 young men died in a crash in central Invercargill yesterday afternoon. Emergency services were called to the 2-vehicle smash on Queen's Drive shortly before 4 o'clock. Southland Area Commander Inspector Michael Bowman says the crash involved a Ford Ranger and a concrete truck. He says 3 of the young men were aged 16 and 1 was 17.
I can confirm that 3 of the young men, aged 16, were from the Bluff community, and it's a tragedy for the Bluff community as a whole.
The scene remains cordoned off, but police have escorted groups of family members in. No names have been released yet. The driver of the concrete truck was taken to hospital with minor injuries and has since been discharged. The Invercargill community has been shaken by not only that, but by another serious incident. In an unrelated incident, a man with stab wounds died early this morning on Don Street, and police have launched a homicide investigation. Invercargill City Mayor Tim Shadbolt says it's rare to have two such serious events in one day.
It's a random spate of events resulting in a very sad time for the city.
Police believe two firearms incidents in Wellington this morning were related and not random attacks. Shannon Johnstone reports.
2 people are in hospital in a critical condition and 2 people were arrested after police were called to an incident on Dixon Street in the central city around 5 a.m. Police then responded to reports of multiple shots being fired from a vehicle outside a Tawa residence around 7 a.m. Half an hour later, police stopped a vehicle travelling north, arresting the 5 occupants and recovering a firearm.
Police are considering charges. The government's pay freeze for the public sector may not be so cold. More than 2,500 bureaucrats earning more than $100,000 a year have been given raises. That's despite rules that pay rises were supposed to be granted in only exceptional circumstances. ACT Party leader David Seymour says it's irresponsible spending during a cost of living crisis, but he says it's part of a larger pattern.
This government has fiscal incontinence. It can't help leaking taxpayer money in every direction.
Women are encouraged to get pap smears despite a backlog in testing. The College of GPs says cervical cancer testing has fallen behind by around 50,000 tests. Medical Director Dr. Brian Betty says cancer screenings are important as they pick up bodily changes that could lead to cancer or be early cancer.
The thing about cancer is all cancers are actually treatable if you get them early enough. So these screening programs, and cervical screening in particular, are really, really important.
COVID-19 lockdowns have likely contributed to the resurgence in records. The vinyl industry is booming after sales hit a 30-year high last year, and local shops are now celebrating Record Store Day today. Real Groovy owner Chris Hart experienced a surge in business during the lockdowns.
A huge number of people have had a box of records under the stairs or in the garage, haven't ever got rid of them because they would get them out one day. Well, that day came with COVID.
It's thought more than 30 people, including children, have died in a blast at a mosque in Afghanistan. It happened during Friday prayers in the Kunduz region in the country's north. No group has claimed responsibility, but a number of attacks on Shia Muslims have rocked the country during the week. The previous attacks were claimed by the terrorist group and Taliban rival known as ISIS-K.
Every view, from every angle. This is News Talk ZB News.
It's 2 o'clock. I'm Bruce Russell. The Ministry of Health is reporting 19 COVID-19 related deaths today, including 2 children under the age of 9. The deaths reported happened over the past week. The remaining deaths are 1 person in their 20s, 4 in their 60s, 2 in their 70s, 5 in their 80s and 5 over age 90. There are 7,930 new community cases in the community today, 494 people in hospital, 15 in intensive care. And arrived at our border, a new COVID-19 variant. It's XE, which has been detected in a traveller who arrived on the 19th of April, but the ministry doesn't say where the person travelled from. The variant is a hybrid of the BA1 and BA2 strains, and early evidence shows it could be more transmissible than both of those. The case is isolating at home. 4 teens, all males, have died following a crash in central Invercargill. Emergency services were called to the crash, involving a Ford Ranger and a concrete truck, on Queen's Drive shortly before 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. One of the teens was aged 17, the other 3 were 16, and they are from the Bluff area. The truck driver had minor injuries and has been discharged from hospital. Southland Area Commander Inspector Michael Bowman says emergency responders were shaken.
There was quite a wide network of services involved at this tragedy, and as you can imagine, they've all got family and friends as well, so it was pretty traumatic.
The scene remains cordoned off, but police have taken family in there. No names have been released. 7 people have been arrested after 2 serious firearms-related incidents in Wellington, one in the central city and one in Tawa. Police say they're believed to be linked. 2 people are in Wellington Hospital in a critical condition after the central city incident in which 2 people were arrested. There were no injuries reported in relation to the Tawa incident. There's some hope that agencies involved in the government environmental plan can be held accountable for their commitments. The plan aims to help the 4,000 native species that face threats, such as climate change and pests. It'll do this by coordinating environment action plans between agencies, local government and central government. Environmental consultant Dr. Andrea Byram says there needs to be a way to make sure the plan is delivering outcomes.
As far as I can see in the plan, there's no particular incentive for some of those agencies to actually do what they'll say they will do. I mean, we can assume they'll be operating in good faith.
Streaming live on iHeartRadio. This is News Talk ZB News.
It's 3 o'clock. I'm Bruce Russell. The Ministry of Health reports 19 COVID-19 related deaths today, including 2 children under the age of 9. The deaths happened over the past 7 days. The other deaths are 1 person in their 20s, 4 in their 60s, 2 in their 70s, 5 in their 80s, and 5 people aged over 90. Jacob Jones has more.
We have 7,930 new cases of COVID-19 in the community today, alongside the 19 deaths. The XE variant has shown up at our borders for the first time in a traveller who arrived on April 19. Early evidence suggests the new variant is more contagious than the BA1 and BA2 strains. The case is now isolating at home.
Invercargill is reeling after a crash involving 4 teenage boys. They died in the crash. Emergency services responded to the 2-car incident on Queen's Drive shortly before 4 yesterday afternoon. One of the teens was aged 17. The others were 16. Southland Area Commander Inspector Michael Bowman says the crash involved a Ford Ranger and a concrete truck. He says the families have been allowed to go through the crash site for a look.
And part of the grieving process is to bring them to the scene to have a better understanding of the scene, but also to carry out a blessing of the scene before we finish our examination.
No names have been released. A person died in a serious crash involving a motorcycle and another vehicle in Whangarei this morning. It happened at the intersection of Western Hills Drive and Douglas Street about 9:30. The roads have reopened. Meantime, Arapaipai Road, State Highway 57 at Levin is now open again after 1 person was killed in a 2-vehicle crash this morning. Police were called to the scene just before 6:30. 2 other people are in a critical and serious condition in hospital. Police believe 2 firearms incidents in Wellington this morning were related and not random attacks. 2 people were arrested after police were called to an incident in Dixon Street in the central city around 5 o'clock. 2 people are in hospital as a result in a critical condition. And police responded to reports of multiple shots being fired from a vehicle outside a residence in Tawa around 7 o'clock. Half an hour later, police stopped a vehicle travelling north, arresting the 5 occupants and recovering a firearm. Police are looking at charges. A 23-year-old man has been arrested after an early morning assault that left another man seriously injured in Whanganui. Police were called to the Victoria Avenue Taupo Quay area around 2 o'clock. They want any witnesses to come forward. Charges haven't been laid against the man, but police are looking at charges now. While the record industry is the strongest it's been in decades, backlogs at pressing plants are causing difficulties for both musicians and retailers. They're causing supply chain issues with stores, and it means even global stars like Taylor Swift have to wait over 6 months for their records to be pressed. Owner at Real Groovy, Chris Hart, says music labels are now booking out factories for major artists, and that makes it more difficult for smaller musicians.
Which is making it really difficult for smaller artists who maybe only want to press 500 copies of a record because it's a lot more expensive for them.